Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Skeleton Crew podcast, where we have discussions with filmmakers and key crew positions on any film set. My name is Joseph Boyle.
And my name is Mark Farag. For those who may not be familiar, a skeleton crew on a film set typically refers to a group of people who work together in a tight-knit group to achieve the production. This includes a director, writer, producer, cinematographer, sound mixer, maybe a first AC. So a pretty small group, and that's how you get your work done.
Yeah, so essentially, once you listen to one of these full seasons, you'll be able to get kind of an overview of any film set, you know, each of the individual roles that it would take to make any film production. We thought we'd just give a sort of introduction to ourselves. We're both filmmakers in the Central Florida area. I've been making films for a number of years now, and my main focus is writing and directing, though I've had a pretty strong interest in cinematography and always shot my own work.
Same for me. For about 10 or 15 years, I've delved into cinematography, writing, and directing.
All right. I guess we got started around the same time, so in life at least. I'm a little older. But anyway, today we got John McElroy here, who is a filmmaker based in the Sarasota area, right?
Mm-hmm. Sarasota, Florida, yeah.
Yeah. So, John, let's just get into it. Tell us a little bit about why you're here, what project you're talking about, Rocky Mountain Fast Guy.
Yeah, we're here to talk about Rocky Mountain Fast Guy, the feature film that we made, independent feature film that we just premiered last month, and then we had an encore premiere in July also. So we had two different showings by popular demand.
Right.
I'm happy to say, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, what's the synopsis of the film?
It's a guy that... Guy Montaigne is the character, and he's a country music artist, and he plays around town in bars, and his family has all played music. His dad played music. His grandfather played music. And so he gets the idea that he's going to take his songs to Nashville in order to save the family Florida ranch from being foreclosed on. And he's going to sell a song or, you know, whatever you do in Nashville to make money off your music. And
So it's kind of a traveling film.
it turns into a road trip, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And he just comes across all these different characters and throughout his journey and takes advantage of all these bad opportunities to get himself to Nashville.
Yeah.
So you not only took on the lead role of the actor, Guy, but you also co-wrote and co-directed, is that correct?
True, yep.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm,
What was that experience like, being a triple threat?
That was all new to me. This is the first film I've ever made, so I didn't really know anything about filmmaking. I was lucky enough to be friends with Brett Jones, and he had done some other work and directing and working on other films. And then we met Wheat, who's done everything, you know, with films, and I keep saying that over and over and over. Wheat is everything because he can do everything. And he was the director of photography. He acted as everything: cinematographer, sound, editing, compositing, all the things that you need to do to make a movie.
He's a multi-threat.
Yeah, he's
not even a triple
there you
threat.
go.
He's
yeah.
like a deca-threat or something.
Multi-threat. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start using that.
A multi-threat. Yeah, that's good. I'll take credit for that.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the reasons Mark and I wanted to have you on, and our goal with this podcast is to have people on that we say, you know, we admire their work. We actually tell the audience to go check out their work. We don't want to just have random people on here. So Mark and I were actually part of the film. You want to share a little bit about how we were involved, Mark?
Yeah, so we were, I guess we maybe wouldn't necessarily mind me mentioning it. We had encountered some health issues, and because of that, he wasn't necessarily able to attend all the shoots, so he called upon us and a few others to kind of fill in for certain dates, and we were camera operators in that sense. So this was a project that went on over the course of 4.5 years.
About 5 years.
5
total.
years, yeah, over weekends and such, because you have a full-time job.
Sure,
and
yeah.
a lot of us are working on weekends, so that's kind of Joseph and I's role in this.
Yeah. So I met Wheat back in September of 2012, I think. And I remember him talking about how he had just got going, right?
We had just met around then, yeah.
Yeah. So he was saying, the title of the film's pretty interesting. I don't want to necessarily get into a Rocky Mountain Fast Guy. It's a very strange sort of way to put together words, but it was striking to me. And I remember him talking about it. And then after whatever project we were working on, he called me up to work on it. So what was it like, John, for a project to stretch for that long?
It was intimidating because you weren't sure if what you wanted to do next was actually going to happen. But we shot everything, as we went and out of order. So there was always that chance that we couldn't get what we needed to get for the next shoot or the one that we wanted to do. But we were, able to adapt and change things to make it work if it wasn't exactly the way that we had written it or pictured it or planned it. So that was stressful, but yeah.
And this, no, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna say, but we made it through somehow. I think persistence, man. If you just keep doing something, something's gonna happen. You know what I mean? If you stop, then nothing's gonna happen. So
Yeah. So you just
keep
kept
doing it.
kept pushing on.
Yeah.
What were some of the major difficulties that you had to push through? So.
Well, like you're saying, like Mark was saying, Wheat came up, he had some kidney disease that he's dealing with. He's doing better now, but there were some times where he was in the hospital, and we would storyboard in his hospital room, and then we enlisted, talented folks like you guys to help us out. And then Wheat would sometimes be able to be there but not be mobile and get around the way he wanted to. So he was still able to act as director of photography, and so that was scary and difficult to work around him going through that, and so I guess that was an obstacle. But it became more important that he was okay rather than, the movie became secondary, obviously at that point. So, but yeah, I'm happy to say he's doing well now. So
Good.
yeah,
That's great. Do you feel like because this project spanned over the course of several years that it took on a life of its own that you weren't anticipating at first compared to the original inception of the idea and the ultimate product?
Definitely. I didn't know what to expect. I had an idea of how things were supposed to go, but you get halfway into it, and then you start realizing, reality sets in. I don't know. What was the question?
Just kind of the original vision compared to the end product,
Yeah.
since it spanned over several years.
It's close. It's different, but it's still the same story. And I think maybe a lot of the things turned out better than I expected, more so probably than didn't turn out the way I expected them.
Yeah.
So
No, that's good.
yeah.
So you were the character. Tell us a little bit about how the character relates to your real life story and how you ended up moving from musician to filmmaker.
Well, yeah. Back in 2009, I've been playing in punk bands, metal bands, and everything for a long time. And then in 2009, I had some hearing issues. I lost my hearing in my right ear, sudden sensory hearing loss. So, go figure, being a musician. And so I was pretty devastated at first. I didn't know what to do. I was, told to stay away from loud environments and things like that. So now what am I going to do creatively? It started eating at me. And I started writing songs again on acoustic, which I did a long time ago and throughout playing in bands too. But and more of a storytelling type thing. And then my friend Randy Wright, who helped me write the script, was helping me write these songs. And then he said, well, who's this guy that you're talking about? And it became like these songs kind of became little parts of the story. So then we kind of blended them and started, we were like, hey, let's write a screenplay, let's write a script. So Google how to write a script, got a template, and just started going at it and taking the elements of the songs and using them in the script. And then the script started to cross-reference the songs also.
So sort of melded into a whole.
Yeah. So as we went, I just kept writing more songs as we went too. So it kind of, we had a script after a year or so and then took it to Brett. But then we continually were refining the script and kept writing songs. So it kept changing as we were going. But the overall story stayed the same. But some of the details changed, and the music also expanded.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
But it was cool to have them cross. It's kind of like The Gambler, I guess, but a lot cooler. You know what I mean? It's like the music plays a part. And if you're watching the movie and you listen to the songs and you know the songs, you'll notice the little pieces in the songs that are in the movie.
Yeah.
And
So is Guy a reflection of you, or
some of it, yeah. Some of it is based on true. There's little bits in there that like my family will get, that other people won't notice. There's a bit in there about. There's a bit in there about one of the characters, and she was a young girl, and she runs back back to her room after church in her church dress, and she's all upset about something, and she slides on the bed, and the dog had shit on the bed. So she slid through. So that's in the movie, and that's actually a true story. That happened to my sister when we were young.
yeah.
So I kind of incorporated. So now when she sees that, or, she's going to know
Yeah.
that I was talking about her. But
That's cool.
It's interesting that you come from the world of music. I've always found it kind of fascinating because when you write your song, you go out and you get to perform it night after night, and it kind of takes on new meaning each time, perhaps. Whereas you make a film for years and years, potentially, and you finally screen it, and then how many times do people watch a film compared to listen to a song? But there's a different reward that comes from each experience. So how would you say your perception of filmmaking kind of evolved compared to your past life in music?
I don't know exactly. They're similar animals, you know what I mean, as far as getting things done and writing stories or dialogue. But I don't really know how to answer that, I guess.
So like so Mark and I have talked about this quite a bit. So both of us, I think, independently, and then we came together and realized that we had the same thought. We said, oh gosh, we should have been musicians, because to be filmmakers, you have to carry around gear, you have to have tons of storage, you have to have all these things to be a musician. John's going to play for us at the end of this. You can carry a guitar in. You can keep your whole life's work on like an SD card or something now. Yeah. You have to have some gear still. And, if you're playing live shows, you have to carry gear in. But I think that feeding off the audience would be totally different than in a film screening. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, definitely. You get some instant feedback when you play in front of people about how they like your work, and it's in these little increments of songs. So maybe one song might be better than the next song, or somebody might like a song better than another song. And I guess that's true with a movie. A scene they might like better than another scene. But it's similar. And I mean, if you're a drummer, you have to have a lot of gear, drag your gear
true,
around.
that's
There's
true.
amps and things involved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's very similar in that way, except for you get the instant feedback from people as you play in front of them. With a movie, the whole time I'm wondering, how are people going to think about this part or that part, and is this going to get the reaction that we're looking for? So the first time that we did the screening, you guys came down and we watched it and got some feedback from all the people that we considered, hey, let's get these guys' opinion. And so that was pretty nerve-wracking for me when everybody was there watching it. It's like, maybe it's like standing in your underwear in front of the classroom or something. Maybe something like that. That feeling. It's very, and you're going to get it all at once too. You're like the entire movie, like you're going to watch each part and how they're reacting to it. And
Very vulnerable position.
yeah, it is. I mean, if you're into it that way, like I was, it was everything, it was, because I was involved with every aspect of the whole entire thing. So I guess, it's your baby, what I mean? So.
I think it's great to be able to take criticism from people who you can trust, because otherwise it's never going to be possible to grow, perhaps. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like when you ask your friends, when I ask my friends, my close friends about something about my art or whatever I'm making, a song or the movie, I want the truth. You know what I mean? It's like, well, we're friends. Tell me if it sucks, you know what I mean? Or what you think. And then if I can make it better, I will. Or if I think you're wrong, then I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But it's good to get that information from people that you respect, your peers and your good friends. And yeah.
So being a first-time director, filmmaker in general, do you think, was your vision pretty specifically focused, or were you just kind of going along saying, I'll take whatever I can get? Or how did that change over the course of time? Did you become more rigid in your vision, or did you become more open, or what was that process like?
I tried to not let things slide. Like if we got to a certain point, it's like, well, we don't have that, or we want to do it this way, but we can't. I was like, we can't schmuck out. You know what I mean? We once you set a precedence for what you're doing, like we got the jail, which is a real jail, and some different locations that kind of, where you start raising the bar for yourself. And even with the actors, getting some really good actors and looking at the performances that we already have in the can and stuff like that. You want to stay at that, the best you can, or improve it if you can as you go. So I was always trying not to schmuck out. When people suggested, wouldn't it be easier to do this? I was like, no, we're not doing that.
Oh,
you know
that's
what I
good.
mean?
So yeah, you got to keep that standard up.
And it's tough over years, to or not to shoot for a few months and then come back and get everything ready to do it again in a different way, a different scene or shoot, and then still try and keep that same momentum and enthusiasm and quality, I guess.
It's always a tough moment when you're on a set and you're running behind and encountering technical difficulties or whatever it may be, and you realize you probably have 3 hours of shooting left to do in a 30-minute schedule, and then you're like, okay, I might have to ask everyone to stay, and people might hate you in that moment, but you got to do what you got to do.
That's
We've
true.
come this far, and then hopefully the goal is 6 months or a year from now when they see the film, they won't even worry about that one moment they had to stay extra, and it'll be worth it.
I found that to be true. Yeah, definitely. The people that came to the premiere that were in the movie, I mean, there were some people, exactly what you said, where they had to stay longer, do something more. And you just be honest with them and say, hey, we're just trying to, make something the best that we can. And they already wanted to be a part of something cool. But when you get there and, it's an all-day thing, people get tired. And but for the most part, I don't think we had any, huge upsets or anything like that. So it was all good. I tried to just be as honest as possible with people
great.
as you're going. Tell them what you're doing. They want to know. They don't want to stand around wondering, well, how long are we going to be here? And it's like, just give them your best guess, or,
Yeah, and it's always longer, inevitably. And I have a tendency to way undershoot because I'm very idealistic. Hey, we're going to get out of here in an hour. And, it's 6
Always.
hours later, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, what happened, Joe?
Well, you were talking about obstacles, I guess, and that would be one of the things is like with the jail, it's like you got 4 hours. That's all you get. You get 4 hours. There's no asking them to, so you got to be proficient.
Because they've moved out prisoners probably.
Right, they moved prisoners. There was one, the exterior shoot we did at Port Manatee, and they had painted this whole entire jail yard, and they remodeled it, and they said, we're moving the, inmates back up in 2 weeks. So it's like, if you guys want to use it, you got 2 weeks. So we had to scramble, get everybody together in 2 weeks and figure it out. And then they're like, you have 4 hours. Or I think that one was 5 hours maybe. So I remember at that shoot, in the last 20, 30 minutes, we're all standing inside going, we need this, this, and this. What are we going to do? So we just found a way to combine those shots into one action and pulled it off somehow, But that I didn't know if we were going to.
Yeah. So in those instances, were you playing mostly cheerleader, or were you trying to stay the positive energy, or what was most important on set?
Both. Just I remember when I started to assume the director role more as Brett got busy, it was just out of necessity. So it's like, okay, now I'm gonna, and I would read about other directors and what they would do and how they would approach things just to get an idea. But at the same time, then I remember, doing the, okay, now it's time to act. You know what I mean? So we got this. Everybody knows what they're doing. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now switch back into Guy Montaigne. And that was all new to me. I had never played something like that. Those roles, multiple roles at one time.
Sure.
Speaking of Brett, kind of having to, did he have to excuse himself from the project, or what kind of happened? How was your reaction to all that?
He just got so busy, and, he was having some things he had to take care of. And so he wasn't able to show up. And so I said, don't worry about it. We're good. We're going to keep on going. And I would take other people's, everybody's best ideas. I mean, I guess, there's titles of who does what when you're on set, but I think it's best if you just ask the skeleton crew, what do you guys think? You know what I mean? Take everybody's best ideas. And if you can do that quickly, just by being direct and honest, and then later on you can apologize for being a dick or whatever, But everybody should understand that you're just trying to get it done. And that's what I did. That was my approach. Or, not saying cut until it was like obvious, painfully obvious that it's time to cut, and a lot of people didn't like that. They were like, what should I do? And I was like, cut, but then you might get something accidentally magical, that a move they did or something they said. So I was always hoping for that,
It's good that you were able to step into that role like full force after that transition, or after he had to leave the project. So congrats on that. It's no easy task,
thanks.
I imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, I would be asking Wheat, you know, what do you think? He's like, I'm concentrating on my job, you know what I mean? So you get to that point where you ask a few people, and then it's time to make your own decisions, you know.
Yeah, the buck stops here.
Right. I think once you're forced into that position, I think maybe I work better that way, you know, if it's under pressure and.
Well, that's kind of like the paradox of choice that sometimes people discuss. The idea that if there's not too many choices, it's far easier to be more decisive and maybe even make better results. Like if you go to a grocery store and there's 98 mustards to choose from, I'm going to take my time and look through most of them. So it's much easier perhaps when you have limitations and just have to sink or swim.
Yeah. I mean, you only got so much time to pick a mustard. So you get down to the last 10 seconds, you're going to have to grab one that, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
that you like, you know. Okay, I'm going to roll with this one, you know.
The Boar's Head honey mustard.
Right.
Good stuff.
Honey mustard is so much worse.
You're
than
crazy.
other
Who
mustards.
prefers spicy mustard over honey mustard?
What do you think, John?
I'm pretty just basic mustard, you know.
Well, yeah, no,
don't
basic
want my
mustard. But basic mustard is probably the best. But honey mustard is several notches below that.
Crazy. Your taste buds are defective.
It's like
That's not even an opinion.
it's against the flavor profile of
No,
mustard.
it's
But
the
I mean,
perfect
I
sweetness
appreciate
to it, and a little bit of
counterpoint.
tang still.
Well, I guess it depends on what you're putting it on.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe like chicken, you want to do the honey mustard, but with a hot dog, you just want to do mustard. I don't know.
Yeah, I like how John's the mediating voice in here. Otherwise,
guys,
we will get into these
of course
discussions
we
that are
would.
pretty intense. Anyway,
Mark's plugging Boar's Head mustard.
yeah.
It's good.
They're going to owe you for
Oh, they should. No, it's a little spicier than it should be, but it's still a pretty good mustard. In any case,
I mean, I would happily take some sort of sponsorship from Boar's Head just to mention it a couple times. They don't have to send me like one bottle. It lasts me for like half a year or something.
we're
So
excited to announce our new Skeleton Crew sponsor.
yeah.
Boar's Head.
So John, just going back to some of the crew or people that worked on it that you said were interested in working on it, and some of the films that I've worked on over the years, I've had people come back to me, a year or two afterwards sometimes and say, like, oh, that was a really meaningful thing that I did, or a meaningful time in life, or something like that. What's your experience been with people who are, most of the time people are working for pretty cheap or free or
nothing, yeah.
volunteering their time. So have you found that to be the case where people come back and say, like, this is really meaningful, or this is...
I have, and I love that, to hear that somebody, really treasured that moment, and, thank you so much for bringing me on board, and these kind of things, even though it wasn't, and I guess, they're not getting paid. I think if you, in my case with Rocky Mountain Fast Guy, the Passion Project, I wanted people that were passionate, or... you get the guy that's like, the first thing he says, well, how much you guys pay? And it's like, well, this might not be for you. You know what I mean? So you kind of field those people and just get the people that want to do cool shit, Mm-hmm. I think that means a lot.
Yeah.
If they're already into it for the right reasons, it's going to go a lot further. I mean, I've dealt with that with bands too, with trying to keep bands together with different members, it's like, if they're worried about, hey, we're going to get famous, then, maybe you shouldn't concentrate so much there, concentrate on the music.
on the work itself.
Yeah, start there first, I guess. And then anything else that comes along after that is a bonus. But I think you should be working towards success. You want it to be good. So.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be the necessarily
The
the main
motivation.
driving force.
Right.
Yeah, and I've noticed that in some sets, you'll get there and they'll be like, this is going to be the big one. This one's playing at Sundance. This one's going all the way. And
Nothing happens to it.
nothing happens to it. And
Nothing.
I mean, it's fine. I have little expectation that anything will happen with it, because there's, 10,000 films come out every year or
Competition's
something.
fierce, yeah.
And so it's fierce. So it's better to focus on the quality of the work, I think. And then you hope for
I
good
agree.
things. Like you said, you move towards success. But
Yeah, it
you don't know
speaks
what's
for
gonna
itself.
happen.
It's going to rise or fall on its own merit, once people watch it or hear it or see it, rather than if you're just bullshitting. If you're just talking about it, that's great. I mean, I like to talk about. I mean, I used to do that with the band. I'd say, let's talk about the music as much as we play it, or enough to where we get to the point where we can play it. You know what I mean? When you're working on a song or something like that. But that's important.
Going back to crew members approaching you or having phone calls, and the first question being, oh, how much does it pay? I think this is definitely an example of currency coming in multiple forms, because I've said myself on set when we were working that your shoots were some of the most enjoyable shoots, and I would gladly, work for less or free compared to some other gigs that are paying 4 or 5 times as much. So definitely experience was valuable. The friendships built in that relation or in that project were valuable. So that was a great project.
Was there any experiences that either of you remember that from the whole shoot that was like, this is a moment that I loved,
I got one in mind, the first one, but I'll let you go first.
I
Get
have
one.
the T-shirt story.
The
We were
t-shirt.
out in the middle of the cow field, 3:00 in the morning or whatever it was, trying to get ready for the sun to come up and do this. And or was it the night before we were leaving? I don't remember which one it was, but I think it was when we were leaving. And so I saw something that looked like a shirt on the ground. I'm like, oh, there's somebody's black shirt. We're getting ready to pack up, and we'll be back in 3 hours, whatever it was. And so I run over there to pick it up, and it's not a shirt. It's shirt without the R. It's cow shit. And I'm like, oh man. Luckily there was a river right there. I could wash my hands off. But it was like, I don't know. That was just one little thing that I remember working with Mark. But I do remember you saying the experience is valuable, and that's when I knew. I was like, all right. Mark's on. We got Mark.
It was great. I remember there was one shoot in particular. I was terribly sick. I think it kind of came over me, and it was like an overnight shoot. I remember you guys had to take the paint or off a car, stickers off. You had to paint a police car essentially, or put
we had to
stickers and
make a
adhesives
police
on it.
car,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I was kind of off in a daze, and it was like 3 a.m. or something watching you guys do this, and I was like, this is amazing. I just don't understand how this is happening right now. Like, we're making films, and I'm like, but I feel awful, but I feel great at the same time. And it's like, we're doing something. But I was like of no help because I was so sick. And but
I think
anyway,
you were actually in the car that we were making, a police car, just kind of chilling out. And we had the LED lights, the little lights.
That's
all
right.
circled around the car. And Mike Lennox and I were out there, one of the crew members, were out there trying to make this police car in the dark,
Oh, it was great. And the next morning we shot it, and it sold. It was very convincing. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I was surprised, because we only had one chance with these stickers. They were the kind of stickers like, you can't mess this up, If you start peeling it off, and it's going to come apart, and so.
That's cool. The risk and payoff.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember there was one of the most memorable moments for me was working with you, Mark. We were upstairs in this restaurant, and we were talking about how to light this scene. There were some guys and girls together at a table, and so we had sort of our basic light level up, but it was pretty high. And Mark was like, "What are we gonna?" I don't remember exactly what happened, but you said like, "What are we gonna do? We need this to be."
We had to like give a contrast light. So yeah, that was kind of like our room light. And I was like, okay, how are we going to get this other light? Or it wasn't bright enough. And then you said.
Yeah, so I said, it was too bright. And you were like, it's got to be dark. It's got to be darker. We got to get more lights in there. And I said, this is the darkness, Mark. and it was sort of an existential moment, I
It's
think.
beautiful.
Where,
I love it.
and Mark was like, oh, that's... I don't know what you said, but you gave me a hug. I got to give you a hug.
That was great. That's that was a great moment. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think, you just have to go with it. You can fight it or you can embrace it, whatever. I think one of the things that you say, one of your phrases is filmmaking is disgusting, right?
Oh, it's a disgusting thing, but goddamn do I love it.
Right. And I remember you saying that too. And it's just those little things, when you're working with people, if you can get a feel of how they're feeling, then it makes, you can release some of that worry or, concern and know that you're going to be okay somehow. It's going to work itself out one way or another,
Yeah. Oh, it's a great project. Was there a particular scene that you can look back now very fondly that stood out to you and you definitely enjoyed filming it, or the way it turned out, whether it was in the production, the shooting of it, or something later on during the edit?
There's a lot of things like that, I guess. One of my favorite things is the junkyard scene that we shot. That was supposed to be Mexico.
Yeah.
And I think it came off really well. And then we had Felipe Fernandez, that was the Lopez the Lion, who was the bad guy. And he just nailed it. He was just, as soon as you said action, he changed. He's one of those kind of people, where immediately he's in the character. And I just love that about him. And I think that really, and the lighting, everything just happened to work out that day. And we originally, I think that was one of those times that we were going to do something in the parking lot underneath a tent or something. And then we changed at the last minute to be in this building and how it worked out. And it's just, so that probably is one of those things that turned out better than I thought, imagined. So
Yeah, he was great. He was, is he Colombian? Was
He is,
from
yeah,
Colombia?
yeah.
Okay, so
He's-
did
he's
you
in
fly him
Colombia.
in? Or
he was here
how
for
did
a
you-
while living and working. And then, so that's when we met him and hooked up with him. And then he hung around, and then he did go back to Colombia, and we had some more stuff we had to shoot. So he flew over for a 3-day weekend. I think you both were on that.
Oh, okay.
A 3-day
That's right.
weekend.
Yeah.
Then we shot a bunch of stuff, and then I think the last night was in the street. We did that, and then I think we got out of there at like 3 in the morning, something like that. And he had to be at the airport at like 5:30.
Okay,
So it was yeah. But he's done some other stuff. He was on that Netflix show. Now I'm drawing a blank. Was it Narcos? Maybe.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not
I
quite
can't
sure,
remember,
yeah.
but it was about what's the? I'm drawing a blank again, but the Colombian drug lord. Anyway, there was a series about that, and he got a part in that, and he used the reel that we gave him to get these parts, and
cool.
he got another part doing another. So he's doing really well in other productions.
It's cool to
acting.
see the sort of networking element of filmmaking too, because Gabriel, I think his name was Gabriel, and that scene was on a film the film that we met on, that I was making, and then I don't know if you saw that film or
I
what.
did, yeah.
But then he was in that scene too, so you see those different connections that are made.
Is that the one that I played that part in?
Oh yeah, you were in that.
Yeah, I played a part in your
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
a small part in that.
Oh, that
yeah.
was great. Yeah, I enjoyed.
And
working with
but
you.
I wasn't.
That was the 2013, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's called The Eyes
but
of
I
God.
didn't meet him. I wasn't on the same
Yeah.
shoot as that he was in, but I saw it. I don't know where I saw it. Maybe he showed me a piece of it, and I just thought that I was like, man, that guy would be perfect, And it was a Mexico scene, so we had we wanted Hispanic people, obviously, actors and stuff, and I think maybe he was Puerto Rican, Felipe was Colombian, and then the other guy, Oscar, I think was Venezuelan.
Yeah.
So it
the
wasn't
gamut there.
really any Mexicans in there.
Yeah, it was funny how all these things come together. Because I met that guy. I was shooting stand-up comedy every couple Sunday nights, and he did a stand-up comedy set that I shot for him.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I thought that guy seemed really natural, and so I said to him, "Hey, I'm a filmmaker. Maybe I don't know if you're into acting or not." And so that's how that happened. So
I see.
it's
Okay, yeah.
kind of funny. those
Curious, was that
connections
his
are made.
first acting role then in your film?
I actually don't remember. I think maybe he had done some stuff with some friends or something when he was younger, but I don't think he had been in anything
Looks like he maybe jump-started his film career.
significant.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean I haven't heard from him in years.
Right, I haven't heard from him. Yeah,
I don't know
But he
if
was
he's
a natural. He was
anything else.
definitely. There's those people that are just naturally, seem comfortable, or they're already that person. That was another thing that we did. Was kind of look for the people that were already kind of that character.
Yeah.
Well,
that was one of the scenes that I wanted to mention. Was a scene where you get a tattoo, and tell us a little bit about that scene.
So that was Dolly Mulholland. She's been a singer for punk bands for many years, and tattoo artist, and mother, and everything else. She's just a really cool person, and talented. Just one of those people. Paints great paintings. I actually have some of her artwork in my house, and so we did the tattoo scene, but it was a Sharpie at the time. And she did really well. She wasn't an actor, but she was one of those people who were like, we were looking for somebody with tattoos and that can be this tattoo. And she's actually a tattoo artist. And she just embraced that role and really brought it to life.
Yeah.
And
I thought she did great.
I did too. I was
I thought the whole
surprised.
scene was really good. And that was one of your early scenes, right?
It
one of
was,
the
yeah.
first.
That was one of the first scenes that we shot, maybe the third or fourth one.
Yeah. So then afterwards, though, you went and
Afterwards, I went and got the tattoo from her. After I got to the point where I was like, okay, I don't need, thinking about what we were shooting to not have to put it on with a Sharpie anymore.
oh yeah,
And so then I was like, well, now I need it for all the rest of the stuff, so I'm just going to get it done, and it'll be a little memory, that I'll have when I'm 80 years old and the wrinkly old tattoo or something, like, remember when we made that movie,
that's cool. So
And
there
so
was
I-
utility in it because you could just use it every time, but then you have sort of a memory as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, but it was funny because when she said, "Come on down, we'll do that." And I just went down there for about an hour or so, and an easy, quick tattoo, and she did really good. And it was, I just remember saying, "Hey, this is kind of deja vu." You know what I mean? That kind of thing where it was the life imitating art kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. Huh.
So she was one of those that was definitely one of those actresses or actors that you just kind of, we did that with several people that weren't actors, and I just was looking at them, and I'm like, be in line at 7-Eleven and go, "Do you act?" You know what I mean?
Did that actually happen at 7-Eleven?
Not at 7. Well, I did on a little movie I did with my kids. We did that, looking for some characters, and my wife would just sit in the car. She's like, "Oh, geez, here you go." I'm like, "Oh, I gotta go talk to this person. They look like who we need."
Yeah. How do you are you pretty? Do you feel okay doing that, or are you like nervous about approaching people or businesses, or are you just like it's gotta get done and I'm fine with
No,
it?
it's nerve-wracking.
I handle rejection all right.
Right. I mean, it's like if I don't ask, and that was one thing that Brett Jones was very encouraging. He's like, "Well, just ask him." You know what I mean? I'm like, "It sounds pretty easy, sounds simple. Just ask him." And then you ask him, and then you got to work out details and things like that. But I think at first, a lot of people will look at you like, what are you talking about? We're making a movie. Oh, okay. And then some of the times. They didn't want to be involved or whatever, and then okay, on to the next person. But then other people were like, "That sounds fun," and that's the people where you see them light up, and that's the people where you're like, "Oh, well, come check it out,"
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and then you start to tell them how long you need it for, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know about that."
that's the details I'm
Well,
talking
that's
about.
why you undersell it, and then when you're there for an extra 4 hours, you can't. They're not going to kick you out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that though. It's
No.
Well,
You
and
hope
a lot
so.
of
You hope so. You don't really know though. They might just be like, "Oh, yeah."
and a lot of times I believed what I was saying, like, "Oh, we'll have that done 3 hours." You know what I mean? But then the more you do it, you realize, hey, it may be 5 hours. So you kind of just tell them 3 to 5 hours, and it's going to be 5 or more.
But did your perception of how long things would take and the gear it takes and everything change from the start to the finish?
Definitely. I remember being the first time we started shooting out at the ranch, and seeing, Wheat and Brett, framing up shots, and Wheat doing some light. I mean, he was doing everything. You talk about Skeleton Crew, and Wheat doing everything, and he was doing the lights, and he would hook up the sound, then Courtney would hold it, and but that's when I started to realize, hey, there's a lot of preparation and forethought that you have to give to this, and even tweaking lights and things where I'm not seeing it. I'm going, that's good. And then Wheat's like, well, hold on, And same with editing with Wheat, and I'm lucky to have become good friends with him and have him work on this, because I would get impatient sometimes after the fact and just say, "Oh, that's good, isn't it? That's good enough." And he's like, yeah, no, it's not. And so it's like, okay, So I give him a lot of that credit and the glory for having it be turned out as well as it did.
Was there ever a shot or a scene that you guys had to cut, even though it took so much work and kind of had to kill your baby at that point, as they say?
Yeah, that was the thing. The first,
By the way,
Yeah.
I think the phrase "kill your darling,"
Kill your,
kill your baby.
Sorry. I thought I heard "kill your baby" before too. Maybe I'm watching something that I shouldn't be. Okay. We should not condone baby violence. All right.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Go. Yeah.
So back to killing was it darling?
Darlings. Yeah. I mean, I'm.
Well,
It's
yeah,
fine.
it does. I mean, we rented this crane in the beginning and stuff, and this was before like drones were, a common thing, maybe, or I wasn't aware of it. So we rented this crane for this shot that we did, and our first edit was like 2 hours and 37 minutes, like broad strokes. I was helping editing too, and we kept telling me just take broad strokes at first. We're okay. So I understood that, and. So then,
What'd the film end up at?
it's
Runtime?
just 158 or something now. I
It's a
think.
healthy
Yeah.
chunk of time that you guys cut off. That is no easy task.
No, and that's you cut the crane scene. It's like, well, we hauled this out here. We got it at 7:00 in the morning. You just think of all these things that you did to get this shot, and then you're like, nope, not using that.
Those aren't easy decisions to make.
It's not.
Sometimes,
But like I've said before,
because it might be a great shot. too.
It is a great shot.
And then
we
you
just
say,
we're just not using it. There's nothing wrong with the shot. You know, it's just it didn't. We had to fix the ending that this was part of. You know, and it didn't work out. So once I got a taste of that and that feeling, you know, in your chest, where you're just like, oh man, you know. It got easier. It was like I've said it before. It's like being a serial killer. You know, hey, yeah. Oh, we'll just cut that too. Get rid of that. Who needs? You know, it's like. Did he say something? He doesn't need to say anything there. You know, it just gets easier, man.
I've never heard it.
Just like killing babies.
Right.
What a rough first episode. Talking about killing babies and serial killers. And
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe not that horrific, but it's that feeling where
it's
like
kind of horrific.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Dark metaphors are sometimes the most impactful.
Yeah,
So.
no, I
right.
have no problem with it.
Hopefully, everyone can understand that without being a serial killer. You know?
The one serial killer out there is like, yeah, right on, John. You understand me.
But then you get carried away too, where you're cutting down to the bone. It's like, you know,
leave a little meat
yeah,
there.
right. Let's not get crazy here. So we did a lot of baby steps with that. Wheat was very patient with me in that aspect too, as far as just getting rid of stuff. Because you know, you ask yourself, is it important to the story? I mean, I love this part. I love how this looks. This is a kind of a gag or a joke that we all understand, but is it important to the story? No. Okay, well, let's get rid of it. And then, you know, we'll see where it ends up. Maybe it'll come back. There was little things that we did cut out, and then I was like, I kind of need that back in there so they'll understand this or whatever. And it may just be a line or a look or, you know, or an entire minute of something that you need. But and you don't know it until you take it out, you know, and then you're looking at it, and then you realize that you want it back in there. But that was only a few things. But.
Yeah, so it's kind of a back and forth process. And,
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, you guys understand that, I'm sure.
yeah. So you were editing too, along with Were you guys doing that in tandem, or sort of doing online online workflows, or
Both,
what was
yeah.
it like?
I would go home. I had all the footage. He had all the footage. I would help edit what I thought something might, or if I got to it before he did, and then he would take it and look at it and maybe make some adjustments or whatever. Or I would go, once we both became familiar with what I edited and what he had edited, we would get together in the same room. I think that's valuable too. I mean, I know a lot of people these days do things, you know, via the internet online, but
There's nothing like being in the same room with
maybe
people.
I'm old
Yeah.
school, you know, but same with music. You know, when you're making music, there's nothing like being in the same room with people as it's happening. We're making this right now, and that's, you know, the same thing with editing. You know, you get in the same room and you can look at each other and talk and just make decisions right there. You know.
Yeah.
And
What were you guys editing on? Just technically speaking.
Vegas.
Vegas.
Yeah,
So did
Sony
you did you become proficient in Vegas?
I'm still pretty basic with the editing. I understand the editing, but with all the added bells and whistles, you know, that's where I'd have to hand it over to Wheat and go, here, this is all I can do. You know, this is my abilities are tapped with this. You know,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Because this was spanning over 5 years, was there ever a scene that you filmed, you threw it on a timeline, and then it wasn't quite how you anticipated, or it kind of influenced future scenes that you were filming?
We didn't do that right away,
Okay.
which we probably should have. You know, go ahead and start building as you're shooting, especially if it's going to take you 5 years, I suppose. You know, but we didn't do that at first. We were just editing the scenes. But then once you put them all together, things start to reveal themselves. To, you know, how this is playing out. So I would, if you know, in the future, I would do it as you're going. You know, and I guess most people do that, don't they? I mean, dailies.
Well, yeah, it can be kind of difficult, though, if you're shooting things like very much out of order, and it depends so much on these factors.
And we had that too. You know, we had the timeline set up, and then you have this chunk out here all by itself because we haven't had this yet. You
It's
know,
hard
so
to get a sense of the flow of things. Yeah.
right. So it's kind of sits out there until you can. So you don't really further refine that one until you get to that point. I think. I don't know. It just happens all different ways. You know.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about so some of the other just technical aspects where people are interested in that. Like, what camera was this shot on, or what cameras? I don't know, any other technical things
You
that might
guys
come to
would probably
mind?
know more than me that type of
Are you
terminology.
into? Yeah, are you into like the technology?
I'm
of it?
not. No, I was. I understand some of it. I don't know how to use a camera properly. You know?
Yeah, no, that's fine. You know, it's
things like
good to seek out the people who do. You know,
Right.
so-
Yeah. And so then you get the expertise of people if that's what they do, and instead of I'll learn it. It's like, well, and I did that with some things, like, well, I'll learn that, but it's like I'm just going to learn just enough to help, but not actually do the entire deed or task that needs to be done. So
Yeah, no, that's fine. I guess it was. I think it was shot on a Canon 60D and then a 5D Mark III.
Yeah. Well, there was maybe in one scene where we were using like a second camera, T2i or something simultaneously.
yeah.
was that the Cantina maybe?
That might have been it. Yeah, I
Okay.
think we had like two cameras running at a couple
The
points. so
60D, I think, is like the very
same
similar
sensor.
sensor.
Yeah.
So,
within that Canon family of DSLRs.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we, obviously he used DaVinci for color correction and all that at the end.
Okay, yeah.
So I think that helps obviously blend the looks of the cameras and.
yeah, I thought it had a pretty good look to it. So
Yeah,
I
I
enjoyed
was
it.
familiar with sound and audio from working, in bands and things like that. So I was able to help out a little bit with that also, or at least get something going to understand when you have to mix audio or cut things and
Sure.
or gathering sounds.
Like
And
sound
then
effects
ADR,
and
yeah.
ADR, yeah. Did you guys do a lot of that? Did you create your own sound effects? Did you do
We
ADR?
did. There was several scenes where we had to rebuild everything because sound will take you out of a movie, and that's what I've noticed from watching other independent films. I think it's important that if you have to go ADR, do it. I mean, it's a huge pain in the ass, kind of.
Yeah.
It's a large chunk of time consuming, but when you do it, the payoff is so worth it, and if you can do it correctly. And I learned a lot about ADR by doing that too, to where I was able to go out and collect the ADR without Wheat's assistance or whatever, but and then understanding what I'm looking for from them, having them echo their lines and things like that. Or
Yeah. So how did you set that up? Did you have like, headphones on with their lines and they would listen to it and then do it again immediately, or were you looking
That's
at
what I tried to do
waveforms,
with most people is just because I was doing ADR also, so I discovered that that's what worked best for me. So I was like, you know what? Listen, we're going to say this. You're going to hear yourself say the line. Then I want you to say it exactly the same way. Or here's your chance to improve. If you didn't like the way that you said that, say it in the same duration or same timing, but now you can put a different.
change the inflection or
Right,
something
exactly.
like that?
Or it's like, well, let me see the way the edit's going. We're not looking at you right here, so you could actually change your inflection a lot, because your facial expressions and things like that, and will show if you're not screaming and you're screaming, or things like that.
What about the sound effects? Did you start doing strange things to get various sounds, or were you just essentially
Two
like
coconuts together for footsteps.
Yeah.
I was into the more organic thing. I think just because I didn't know how, what to do. So I was like, well, I know what needs to happen here. Maybe this sound. And we did do that. We collected some sounds, just something that would sound like you're banging on a soda machine is actually not that. It's a piece of plastic or whatever it is.
It's incredible what our minds how well our minds bridge that gap, because it's not the exact sound, but
Right.
your mind
But you're
reads
seeing
that way.
it, so
Yeah.
you're thinking, and and so a lot of that stuff turned out really good. But then Wheat also, was able to get from libraries or whatever effects he's got, sound effects, and I don't know what you call it, Foley.
Oh yeah, Foley. Yeah.
Is there any Foley from some of your earlier films, Joe, that you recall that were kind of bizarre or strange at the time, but sounded convincing?
It wasn't really bizarre, but there was a time my good friend Brian Bogatz was helping me do some Foley for. This was a film we shot on Super 8mm film, so there was no sound to it, so we were just creating it. So we had to get some guy crawling through the grass. So normally I think people use audio tape that's kind of all clumped up, but we had some shredded paper. So we just had it in a little thing, and he just watched and, kind of clawed his way along, and It's some of the best Foley I've heard. I mean, in my own work, there's incredible Foley out there, but so it wasn't terribly strange. I've done some sounds with my mouth before. Just it's like a cut sound, just like just like little,
Or you need wind
like
or
that.
something like. Yeah.
I think you can sell it quite a bit. What about yourself, Mark?
it could be so much fun. I haven't done anything too crazy, just kind of standard affair stuff. I've done the cassette tape for Walking Footsteps on Grass. That one worked fairly well. Just fire, like matches and things like that. Yeah. It can be fun. I find it actually very relaxing because when you're on set during principal photography, there's so many hectic things going around. Foley, you can kind of take your time with. You can do it outdoors, indoors. Maybe just have one assistant next to you, a teammate, and it's such a different pace to it. It's very almost therapeutic. I enjoy it quite a bit. Yeah,
We just did some a while ago, maybe
That's
two
right.
or 3 months
That's
ago.
right.
That was kind of nice.
yeah, it was enjoyable.
Again, you can go through it nice and slow. So that's
I think that's one of the cool things about it when you're watching it. You're like, well, what are we missing? What sounds are we missing? What could we do here? Do you hear dogs in the background, or what do how can you, contour the environment?
I noticed that about the jail scene in the Sarasota jail. It was a really rich environment because there's all sorts of things going on. People crying out and like doors closing and some guy singing and guards yelling and footsteps going. It was a really rich environment. And I thought, this came together really well because I was shooting that.
And you were there, so none of that happened.
I know, yeah. None of that was going on at the same time.
Right.
But layered together, it worked really well. So that was nice.
I even did, Mike Lennox and I went out east and found, a quiet space for ambiance and just, and trying not to get the wind noise and everything. And I took a scene on my phone and I was watching it and then tried to time my movements to hit the branch or whatever it was. And we did several times, takes of it, and he would follow me with the microphone and I'd watch it on the phone. So
That's great.
yeah. So you're trying to actually match, the edit that you have. And
It's kind of funny. People who aren't in this world have no idea typically what it takes to make a 3-second clip or a 5-second shot here, and it's incredible. That's why I say filmmaking is a disgusting thing. But I love it. Just so literally, you can spend months on one scene, and people will have no sense of it. That's kind of the paradox of it, though. Like sometimes you want to get that immediate reaction or that sense of validation that people understand what was involved to achieve it, but at the same time, it's almost like a magician. Like you're tricking them, and they don't really know why or how it happened. So it's very odd. I've found.
yeah, there's a mystery that they don't even know about. It's
Part of you wants them to know.
you
don't
want to tell them.
know.
What we did to make that. And at that point, I don't think they care. They're just they want to be, and that's good if they just want to be entertained and watch the movie. Because a lot of people will sit there and pick apart everything. And it's like, well, then you don't want to be entertained if you're going, well, that's not real. That wouldn't happen. And it's like, well, try to enjoy yourself.
Yeah. So that's kind of the goal, is to not tear anybody out of it. And so that's the goal of all this Foley and everything is try to enjoy yourself, and we'll make it as easy as possible for you to enjoy yourself.
We'll try to facilitate that for you. Yeah. I think that sound is very important. If I was going to say anything, sound can make or break a scene. Even if it looks fantastic and you have somebody that, if it doesn't sound good,
I'm with you 100%.
it's over,
It's been like a lifelong just struggle for me to get good sound gear and good recorder and microphones and that type of thing. And also technique. Obviously, technique is incredibly important. So that's something that's constantly building. But
and to have somebody on set that's your sound guy, that gives a shit. He's listening, he's making sure. And then Mike was really good at that. He'd come up and say he was concerned. He's like, "What do you think about this?" And just listen before we continue.
That's great.
Yeah, so that was good.
Sadly, that's overlooked
yeah.
so much of the time. So people say, "Oh, we need an extra lighting assistant or something." Like, who's going to do sound? Like, I don't know. We'll get that kid over there to do it.
Strap it to the dog or whatever.
Yeah. It's so important, though.
If you're gonna have a skeleton crew, you gotta get a good sound guy or sound gal. So
Yes,
don't overlook
sound
it.
person for sure. Yeah. Definitely. I just remember being in the strip club scene, and there was a refrigerator or something running, and I'm everything seemed good when we were there, and I'm hearing it, but I'm like, man, you're not going to hear that. And Wheat's looking at me like, yeah, you're going to hear that. No, and I didn't believe him, and he's like, okay, because I was like, we struggled to find out how to turn it off, but couldn't figure it out. And they had just let us have the place, so the guy that wasn't there to figure out how to turn it off, and that was one of the factors of why we recreated all that sound in that.
So just that one thing
Yeah,
causes so much.
it kind of ruined the entire thing sound-wise.
Yeah.
But in the end, you take the time to do the ADR and the Foley and everything and put the music in and create your own atmosphere. It turned out really good, so.
Yeah, even here, we have a refrigerator like 30 feet down the hallway, and we turn that off.
We put your keys in there as a reminder.
Yeah, right.
So you're not
yeah.
leaving without it.
Yeah. So,
I think we did that at the the house out east with the buffalo head and everything.
Yeah.
I think, didn't you put your keys in the
I
refrigerator?
think so. I think I learned that from you, Mark.
Yeah, I
years
learned
ago.
it from someone else years ago too.
Whatever you got to
It's
do to
passing it
remind
on.
yourself,
Yeah,
Yeah. Because like you say, there's so much going on and it is hectic, So
Yep.
anything like that.
Oh yeah.
Anything you use to remind yourself, checklists, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we were storyboarding at first, but then we would get there and obviously these scenes, they would change, the shots would change. So then we just started doing a shot list, So it's like, okay, well, at least we know that we need these shots. I think that was really helpful if you're not going to storyboard entire things, or if you're going to storyboard and then not use it.
Yeah. So were you and we ever doing like consistent storyboards, or is it shot listing, or did you have to have one? Like, how does your mind kind of work visually when it comes to like these scenes? Did you just have an idea of what was needed, or some people definitely have to have them? Some people are kind of flexible.
Well, at first I didn't know any better. So it was just it took a little more time to frame things up, and then you look and you like it, or, you review the shots and all that kind of thing. Then we started storyboarding at Wheat's suggestion, because he wasn't able to be there. So he wanted to give some clear ideas to other people that were camera operators and whoever was helping. And so in those instances, if you're trying to convey an idea to somebody, I think that really helps that they can visualize it. But to have a good director or instructional person like that can use a shot list,
Right.
and come up with the ideas and move things around. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that does. Yeah, I myself can't even draw a stick figure to save my life, so I tend to stick with just shot lists. And I see the value of storyboards. I just can't do it. And I know some people. Joe, I think you're more of a storyboard guy. Is that correct?
Yeah, my drawings aren't great. They look like ghoulish, terrifying circles for heads with some sort of like spiky mouth. But
as long as you understand and the person you're trying to show it to understands.
yeah,
then,
exactly.
yeah.
So my goal is to storyboard, but always to be flexible when you're shooting, because something better might come up. And a lot of times schedules are so rushed you can't storyboard every single thing, so you might just end up with a shot list. But that's the goal.
What about was it Red Stroke? Did you storyboard all that stuff? I didn't mean to start interviewing.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. Yeah,
Because that's really impressive, man. I don't know if anybody wants to watch some of your work. I would recommend that. That's
yeah. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
So Red Stroke was a film. I think it was like 53 minutes. So it wasn't quite a feature. It's sort of a weird mid-length film that I shot in Korea between like 2010, 2011. So for that, I tried to storyboard again, but sometimes you'd be shooting like a 17-hour day or something, and you're shooting so many scenes that you can't get to everything. So I usually try to have sort of these shots in my head, but it wasn't perfectly storyboarded. So.
Yeah, I just asked because of the locations and stuff that you use. It was really cool. So I wondered if you already had a clear idea of that.
Yeah, I had at least a rough idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and that's the value of that too. Like if you're able to go to a location, and I think most people do, and do some mock frame ups and things like that. That's valuable. If you're not able to storyboard after that, I guess. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. See the location ahead of time.
Yeah. For those who are tuning in on this episode, if they were interested in making a feature or even a short film and they don't have much experience, what would your advice be to them?
To make a film?
Yeah. Just don't.
It's disgusting. Like I said before, I think sound is really important. So maybe give some forethought to that, a lot of forethought to that. Don't be afraid to ask, to use locations, and don't wait for people's permission to make a movie, to create something. You just just keep doing it until you get it done. I guess persistence and. I'm trying to think of something valuable that I could say.
I think that's
These are
hugely
very-
valuable.
yeah,
Just
very
the
important things.
persistence thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's next for Rocky Mountain Fast Guy? And then where can people find some information about it? And for you, John?
Yeah. Well, RockyMountainFastGuy.com is our website, and we'll have everything up there. You can get the all original soundtrack that I wrote with Randy, and we got a bunch of different guest musicians. Twinkle, who plays a part in the movie, she also sings on one. Cassandra Kalo, she's in a band called All Hail the Queen. She sings on a song. She backs me on a lot of songs. She also plays a character, exotic dancer. And she's another one that I don't know if ever did any really, acting, but she did really well. So just trying to get the music out there. So what we're going to do, we'll have like more of a marketing aspect to that once we have the film online, because I don't want to start promoting the music and say it's from the movie and then not have people be able to see the movie, and then try to keep that in their mind for 3 or 4 months until we get it on different platforms, Amazon, Hulu, those kind of things. We're working on how we want to distribute it.
Okay, yeah.
And so
Great. Well,
Yeah.
we'll put some links in the description below. What about yourself, John? You moving on now to another
What am I
film?
doing? I don't know. I've always got ideas, always thinking. I'd like to do a short film. I'd like to maybe do some acting in somebody else's film where I wouldn't have to worry to, just tell me what to do. I find that fun.
Great.
And just
We're excited to see what comes next.
Yeah,
Nice
me-
job
me
on this.
too.
Congratulations. It's a very enjoyable film, and I think everyone in the theater had a great time watching. It was great to hear their expressions, excitements, laughs, and things like that.
yeah, I'm glad you guys could be there too. Being such a huge part of it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
No, I'm glad we came out of it as friends.
Yeah, right.
It's always
Exactly.
a beneficial aspect of filmmaking. So we're going to have John take us out with a song from Rocky Mountain Fast Guy in a moment. So for any of you watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, share this, leave us a comment about something that you'd like to see. On iTunes, leave us a review.
Also,
That's really helpful.
Android apps as well for those non-Apple users.
All right, very good. So anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in for this episode of Skeleton Crew. What song are you going to be playing, John?
I'm going to do a song called Sleeps with Dogs. This is on the soundtrack. I was backed on the soundtrack by a favorite band of mine and friends of mine, Have Gun Will Travel. And they also make a cameo in the movie playing themselves. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right, well, thanks again, and
Thank you, guys.
take us out.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Okay.
Rode into town with one thing on his mind, looking for a woman guaranteed to spend his time. So he took her from the dance floor into his rented bed, looked her in the eye, son, and this is what he said. Ow, 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 ow. She failed to mention he was more than just a friend. Rode up with his deputies and death control men. Saw the flicker of his badge, yeah, he'd caught himself a thief. The worst thing you could steal, his girl from Tennessee, and she said, ow, 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 ow. the streets, but there won't be no witnesses. The sheriff, man, he's got a grudge and he's looking for revenge. Well, they stood at 20 paces, 2 dead men in the street, 6 guns on their side, with hatred on their face, and they say, ow, 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 ow. And oh, spent most of his time in the saddle, lived all his life out on the range, made some money stealing cattle, slept with the dogs out in the rain. Sleeps with the dogs out in the rain.
All right, that was great. Thanks a lot, John.
Sunday morning version. Thank you very much.
All right. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. You can find links and information about our guests in the show notes or description below. Music by Ian Kreider. To contact us, please visit SkeletonCrewPodcast.com. Thanks for listening.